I still remember the day he walked into the tattoo parlor, a mixture of determination and fear etched across his face. I was behind the counter, organizing appointment bookings and cleaning supplies when the bell above the door jingled. The place was buzzing with the familiar sound of tattoo machines humming in the background, classic rock playing just loud enough to be heard but not overwhelming. The smell of antiseptic and ink hung in the air, a scent I'd grown so accustomed to that it felt like home. Our shop, Inked Expressions, was known for being one of the most welcoming places in the city, catering to first-timers and veterans alike. We prided ourselves on creating a judgment-free zone where people could express themselves through body art. He hesitated at the doorway, taking in the environment, as darting from the flash art covering the walls to the clients getting tattooed in the open area. I noticed him immediately, not just because it was my job to greet customers, but because there was something captivating about his nervous energy. He was tall, probably around 6 feet, with dark hair styled in that perfectly imperfect way that looks effortless but probably took 20 minutes to achieve. He wore a simple black t-shirt that hugged his frame just enough to show he took care of himself, paired with dark jeans. But what caught my attention most were his eyes, deep brown and expressive, currently wide with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "First time in a tattoo shop?" I asked with a friendly smile as he finally approached the counter. He seemed startled that I'd read him so easily, a slight blush creeping up his neck. "Is it that obvious?" he replied with a nervous laugh, running his hand through his hair. "I've been wanting to come in for months, but kept finding reasons to put it off." I introduced myself as Alex, one of the piercers at the shop, and learned his name was Ethan. He wasn't here for a tattoo, he explained, but had been contemplating getting his first piercing. "Nothing too wild," he clarified quickly. "Just an earring, maybe. Or possibly a helix." The way he said it, testing the terminology, made it clear he'd done his research. Let me explain why this moment matters in tattoo and piercing shops across the world. First-timers always have this particular energy about them, this mixture of wanting to take a step into self-expression while simultaneously fearing the unknown. It's a vulnerable state, putting your body and trust in the hands of a stranger with needles. As professionals, we recognize this vulnerability and honor it. That's why building rapport is so crucial in this industry. It's not just about the technical skill of applying ink or jewelry, it's about guiding someone through a transformative experience. I invited Ethan to sit at the consultation area, a comfortable corner with 2 plush chairs and a small table where we discussed designs, placements, and options with clients. As he settled in, I noticed how he gripped the armrests, knuckles slightly white. "So, what's drawing you to get a piercing now?" I asked, genuinely curious. Most people have a story, a reason why they choose a particular moment to modify their body. Sometimes it's celebration, sometimes it's reclamation, sometimes it's simply aesthetic desire. Ethan took a deep breath before answering. "I've always wanted one, since I was a teenager really, but my parents were super conservative. Then college came, and I was too worried about job prospects to do anything unconventional." He made air quotes around the word. "Now I'm 30, established in my career as a graphic designer where no one really cares about this stuff, and I realized I'm still living by other people's rules." He paused, seeming surprised by his own candor. "Sorry, that was probably more information than you needed." "Not at all," I assured him. "That's actually one of the most common stories I hear. People waiting until they feel free enough to make choices about their own bodies. It's never too late to start expressing yourself authentically." I pulled out a tablet to show him different earring options and placement possibilities. As I swiped through images, I explained the different healing times, care instructions, and what to expect in terms of sensation. "Everyone's pain tolerance is different," I explained, "but an earlobe is generally one of the least painful spots. A helix has a bit more bite to it, but it's quick, just a moment of sharp pressure, and then it's done." At the mention of pain, I watched Ethan's expression tighten. He shifted in his seat, leaning forward to look more closely at the images, but I could tell his mind was elsewhere, likely imagining the needle. "The pain is what's held me back the most," he admitted. "I've never been great with it. I nearly passed out getting a flu shot last year, which is embarrassing to admit." He laughed self-consciously, rubbing the back of his neck. "There's nothing embarrassing about it," I said, setting the tablet down. "Everyone has different relationships with pain and needles. Some of the toughest-looking people I know have had to lie down for simple piercings. The anticipation is usually worse than the actual moment." I shared some of my own experiences, both as a piercer and as someone with multiple tattoos and piercings. I told him about my first tattoo, a small star on my wrist that I'd gotten at 19, and how I'd been so nervous I'd nearly backed out 3 times before finally sitting in the chair. As our conversation continued, the shop grew busier around us. 2 more tattoo artists had arrived for their shifts, and clients were filtering in and out. The background noise created a bubble of privacy around our consultation corner, making it feel like we were in our own world despite being in an open space. Ethan seemed to relax incrementally as we talked, his grip on the armrest loosening. He asked thoughtful questions about aftercare and healing, showing he'd done his homework but wanted confirmation. So, I finally asked after we'd covered the basics, would you like to schedule an appointment for later in the week? Or are you feeling spontaneous today? I had an opening in my schedule in about an hour, after I finished with a scheduled navel piercing. Ethan's eyes widened slightly at the suggestion of doing it today. He hesitated, clearly torn between wanting to get it over with and wanting more time to mentally prepare. I should probably do it now, he said after a moment's consideration. If I leave, I might talk myself out of it again. There was determination in his voice, but his body language told a different story. His shoulders had tensed, and he was now gripping the chair again. I've seen this internal conflict hundreds of times, the mind ready but the body sending danger signals. It's a primal response, this fear of sharp objects and pain. Perfectly natural, but something that needs gentle navigation. While we waited for my previous appointment to finish, I showed Ethan around the shop, introducing him to a couple of the tattoo artists who were between clients. Seeing the camaraderie and professionalism seemed to help ease his nerves somewhat. I explained our sterilization procedures, showing him the autoclave and sealed piercing needles, emphasizing our commitment to safety and hygiene. Knowledge is power, especially when anxiety stems from the unknown. When it was finally time for his piercing, I led Ethan to my station, a clean, well-lit area with a comfortable reclining chair similar to what you'd find in a dentist's office, but far less intimidating. As he sat down, I could see his breathing had become more rapid. "We can take a minute if you need," I offered, preparing my tray with the sterilized equipment. Some people find it helps to use breathing techniques. In through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 7, out through the mouth for 8. Ethan nodded, attempting the breathing exercise I suggested, but his hands were shaking slightly as they gripped the armrests. "I'm being ridiculous," he muttered. "It's just a little piercing. People do this every day." I paused in my preparations, giving him my full attention. "You're not being ridiculous," I assured him. "Your feelings are valid. There's no shame in being nervous about something new, especially when it involves a needle." As I marked the placement on his earlobe with a surgical pin, having him check and approve it in the mirror, his anxiety seemed to peak. He sat back down, and I noticed his hands had moved from the armrest to his own thighs, squeezing tightly as if to channel his nervous energy. I explained each step as I went, hoping the transparency would help. "I'm going to clean the area now," I narrated, applying the antiseptic. "It'll feel cold. Then I'll get the jewelry ready." What happened next caught me completely off guard. As I positioned myself to do the piercing, needle in hand, Ethan's hand suddenly shot out and grabbed my thigh instead of his own. The contact was unexpected but not unwelcome, a human reaching for another human in a moment of vulnerability. His fingers pressed firmly into my leg, just above my knee, as he braced himself for the piercing. Our eyes met briefly, his wide with embarrassment as he realized what he'd done. "I'm so sorry," he started to say, beginning to withdraw his hand, but I shook my head. "It's okay," I said calmly. "If it helps, you can hold on. Many people need something to squeeze. Usually it's the chair or their own leg, but this works too." I gave him a reassuring smile, and after a moment's hesitation, his grip returned, perhaps a bit gentler but still seeking support. There was something intimate about this moment, not in a romantic sense, but in that raw, human way when barriers briefly fall away. "Ready?" I asked, and when he nodded, I counted down. 3, 2, 1. The needle went through smoothly, followed immediately by the jewelry. Ethan's grip on my thigh tightened considerably during that split second, his eyes squeezed shut. Then it was done. "All finished," I announced, and his eyes flew open in surprise. "That's it?" he asked incredulously, his hand still on my leg as if he'd forgotten it was there. "That's it," I confirmed with a smile, stepping back slightly, which finally prompted him to release his grip. The anticipation is almost always worse than the actual piercing. I handed him a mirror so he could see the small silver stud now adorning his earlobe. The transformation on his face was remarkable, the anxiety melting away into a mix of relief and pride. "I can't believe I finally did it," he said, turning his head to see the earring from different angles. As I explained the aftercare routine, saline soaks, avoiding sleeping on that side, When to downsize the jewelry, Ethan seemed to be only half listening, still captivated by his new appearance. There's something powerful about that moment when someone sees themselves altered for the first time, especially when it's a change they've contemplated for years. It's like watching someone recognize a version of themselves that had previously only existed in their imagination. "Sorry again about grabbing your leg," Ethan said as I finished the aftercare instructions. "I don't know what came over me. I was aiming for my own thigh and just missed." He laughed nervously, a blush creeping up his cheeks again. "Honestly, it happens more than you'd think," I reassured him, which wasn't entirely true but seemed like the kind thing to say. People reach for support in all sorts of ways when they're nervous. There was a brief pause, a moment where the air between us felt charged with something unspoken. "I should probably pay and let you get to your next client," Ethan finally said, breaking the silence. As I rang him up at the register, he seemed reluctant to leave, lingering even after the transaction was complete. "Do you have a card?" he asked suddenly. "In case I have questions about the healing. Or, if I decide to be brave and get that helix piercing too." I handed him my professional card with the shop's information and my work email. On impulse, I turned it over and jotted down my personal number as well. The top one is the shop, but below is my cell. Sometimes aftercare questions come up after hours. Our fingers brushed as he took the card, and there was that moment again, a small connection that felt larger than the circumstance warranted. "Thank you, Alex, for everything," Ethan said, tucking the card carefully into his wallet. "You made this a lot less terrifying than I'd built it up to be in my head." He touched his new earring gently, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Maybe next time I'll manage to keep my hands to myself." There was a hint of playfulness in his tone that hadn't been there before, a confidence that seemed to have emerged with the piercing. As he turned to leave, he paused at the door. "How long should I wait before considering another one?" he asked. "I'm already thinking I might want something else." I couldn't help but smile at this. It was so common, this awakening of desire for more once the first step was taken. "Give this one at least a month to settle," I advised. "But you're welcome back anytime, even just to talk options." After Ethan left, the rest of my day continued as normal. More piercings, more nervous clients, more aftercare instructions. But my thoughts kept drifting back to him, to the feeling of his hand gripping my thigh, to the transformation I'd witnessed. In our line of work, we're privileged to be part of people's journeys towards self-expression, but some connections linger more than others. A week later, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Ethan's ear, the piercing looking clean and healing well, with a message, "No regrets." Thinking about that helix now. Also wondering if piercers ever get coffee with their clients. I smiled at my phone, typing back, "Piercers definitely drink coffee. Occupational necessity. And this one happens to be free tomorrow afternoon." What began with a squeeze of my thigh instead of the chair led to coffee, which led to dinner the following week. Ethan did eventually get that helix piercing, and I was there to hold his hand, properly this time, fingers intertwined on purpose rather than by anxious accident. Sometimes the most meaningful connections happen in unexpected moments of vulnerability, when we reach out instinctively for support and find something more than we anticipated. Looking back now, I'm grateful for his fear and his misplaced grip. In a profession where I witnessed countless transformations, I never expected to undergo one of my own, from piercer to friend to something more, all because someone was afraid of a little pain and found comfort in an unexpected place. It's a reminder that in our most vulnerable moments, when we let our guards down and reach out, we sometimes find exactly what we didn't know we were looking for. The tattoo parlor continues to be a place of stories and transformations. Every client who walks through the door brings their own fears, desires, and reasons. But Ethan's story, our story, reminds me why I love what I do. It's not just about the piercings or the tattoos. It's about being present for those moments of courage, those small acts of reclaiming oneself, and sometimes, those unexpected connections that change everything. In a world that often feels disconnected, there's something beautiful about creating a space where people can be vulnerable, authentic, and occasionally, reach out and grab the wrong thigh in a moment of fear, and find something wonderful as a result. Total _char_count, 18,743.